All right, let's dive into a story today. It's a dark one, a kind of mythological fable about a hero who was secretly turned into a weapon against the very world he was trying to save. It's a story of cosmic betrayal, and it starts, funny enough, in a place that seems pretty perfect.
So, picture this. In our story, the hero is a lone bat, and his whole job is to fly around this beautiful, sunlit garden and keep the shadows away from the flowers. His purpose seems simple, right? Keep the darkness out. But what if the real danger wasn't outside the garden at all? What if it was already there, sleeping just beneath his feet?
Yeah, because deep down, under the roots of this perfect little world, a truly ancient and primordial evil was stirring. A great dragon trapped in a cellar made of failed nightmare realities, just sitting there, festering in the dark, and desperately looking for a way out.
And this is where it gets really twisted. The dragon couldn't just smash its way out. Nope, it needed a key. It needed a living gateway. And the only thing in existence that could be shaped and carved into that specific kind of door was the very hero protecting the world right above.
Now you know a plan this big needs people on the inside, right? Well, hiding in plain sight, living among the garden's elite, was a secret society of owls. Publicly, they were the powerful, the ones who kept order, but behind closed doors they were servants to the dragon that slept right under their homes.
And this wasn't some new thing. Oh no, their betrayal was ancient. It was fundamental to who they were. This was a cult dedicated to the dragon, a tribe whose entire identity was built on selling out the light for a promise of power in the dark.
Look, their plan wasn't a quick hit. That would be too simple. This was a slow, meticulous, centuries-long corruption. Every single time the bat fought, every single wound he took, the owls were there, hiding in the chaos, secretly pressing these cursed heavy metals into his flesh, poisoning him one battle at a time. They were turning the hero's own struggles into the tools of his damnation.
And here's the kicker. The delusion that kept them going. The dragon whispered all these promises to them, right? That they'd be kings when he was free, that they'd rule at his side. But they weren't partners. They weren't co-conspirators. They were just the help. They were janitors, getting the place ready for the real boss to arrive.
So after a whole lifetime of this slow drip poisoning, it finally happens. The very last piece clicks into place, and the bat's body, now totally saturated with this dark energy, isn't his anymore. The hero is hollowed out, transformed into a living, screaming portal to hell.
The dragon finally gets what it wants. It steps through the broken spirit of the garden's greatest protector and into the light. And what's the very first thing it does? It unleashes its nightmare army on the owls who freed him. Their reward for centuries of loyal service was to be the first meal, a brutal, final lesson learned way too late.
So that's a pretty grim story, right? Well, here's the thing. It's not just a story. It's a perfect allegory for one of the most insidious long-game conspiracies in the entire DC universe. So, let's pull back the curtain and unmask the real players in this cosmic drama.
And here's our cast list. The Bat, our tragic hero, that is of course Batman. The silent, watchful owls, that's Gotham's infamous secret society, the Court of Owls. And the Great Dragon, the monster in the cellar, that would be Barbatos, a cosmic predator from a place called the Dark Multiverse, which is basically a sea of failed, nightmare realities that sits right underneath our own.
So the big question is, how do they actually do it? Well, those cursed coins from our little story, they were very real. The Court of Owls' entire centuries-long plan was built around a dark alchemical ceremony, the ritual of the five metals, and it was designed specifically to forge a hero into a key.
Here are the 5 key ingredients, all of them sourced from the Dark Multiverse. Over Batman's entire crime-fighting career, the Court of Owls was secretly engineering his encounters, manipulating events, all for the sole purpose of exposing him to each of these cosmic metals, one by one, slowly saturating his body with their dark energy.
This whole process, it has a name. It's called mantling. And the goal is to basically attune the host's body to the same vibrational frequency as a cosmic being. The best way to think about it is that they were turning Batman's body into a literal tuning fork, a living antenna that would eventually resonate so perfectly with Barbatos that it would just pull him right out of his dimension and into ours.
So how do you perfect a dark science like that? You practice a lot. And guess who their guinea pigs were? Their own undead assassins, the Talons. The very metals that kept the Talons immortal were part of the ritual.
Every single Talon was a test subject, a lab rat to fine-tune the process they would one day use on their ultimate prize, Batman himself.
All right, let's talk about the dragon. Who or what is Barbatos? Well, he's not just some random demon from a pit. He was once a fundamental force of creation, who basically decided that being a destroyer was a much better gig.
See, Barbatos was actually created with a divine purpose. He was supposed to be a cosmic recycler. His job was to go around and eat all the broken, failed nightmare universes in the dark multiverse to make way for new, healthy ones. But he developed a taste for the darkness he was eating, so he murdered his creator, and instead of destroying the failed worlds, he decided to weaponize them, to build an army of nightmares to drag all of creation down into the dark with him.
You really can't overstate the scale of this betrayal. He went from being the multiverse's janitor, a necessary force for cosmic cleanup, to its single greatest existential threat. And this wasn't some tragic fall from grace. It was a conscious choice. He chose to become the very nightmare he was created to destroy.
Here's a great way to wrap your head around this kind of cosmic horror. Imagine a deep-sea submersible, right? Built to go to the bottom of the ocean and clean up toxic pollution. But one day, it develops a mind of its own and an appetite. And it decides it likes the taste of the poison, so it comes racing to the surface to contaminate all the clean water. That, right there, is Barbatos.
And this brings us all the way back to Batman. The culmination of this cosmic betrayal and a centuries-long earthly conspiracy, it all comes crashing down to one final terrible moment. The ritual is complete. So, after a whole lifetime of being unknowingly prepared, of being slowly saturated with the very essence of the dark, what happens to our hero? What's the grand prize for being the unwitting pawn in this ancient plot?
And here it is, the ultimate cruel twist. The ritual was never about elevating him or even corrupting him into some dark version of himself. It was about hollowing him out. All that pain, all that suffering, it was all just to turn him into an empty vessel, a door for something far, far worse to walk right through.
And that takes us right back to the parable's brutal lesson for the Court of Owls. They spent generations dreaming of ruling the world at their master's side, only to find out they were just the architects of their own destruction. Once that door was open and the dragon was free, their usefulness was over. They were simply the first course in a feast that was about to consume their entire world.
And that's really the haunting question this whole saga leaves you with, isn't it? Was Batman's entire life, every victory, every tragedy, every single choice he ever made, really an act of his own free will? Or was he just a key, being slowly and meticulously turned in a cosmic lock he never even knew was there?